A new story has hit the interwebs saying that Tiana's Bayou adventure has been planned since 2018. There's something a little suspicious about that, and we're going to talk about it on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter with That Park Place, and here with me is the font of all theme park knowledge, Mr. Vash Sky. Vash, I need you to enlighten us. I need you to take us into a 52-foot plunge into some knowledge here. What's going on?
Well, I think I can provide you that plunge. Let's go ahead and go into this laughing place of knowledge here. Brought to us by, this time, Blog Mickey. Imagineers began developing Tiana's Bayou Adventure in 2018. I call foul on here, but let's go ahead and read a little bit of this. In a recent interview, Carmen Smith, the Walt Disney Imagineering Senior Vice President, Creative Development, Content, Product, and Inclusive Strategies, definitely note that last title right there, said that Imagineers began developing the idea for Tiana's Bayou Adventure back in 2018. Which is very strange because we just didn't necessarily hear anything about it until 2020, June 25th, obviously. That's when the project was officially announced with this version of concept art that never came to fruition. But that was used multiple times, even on that Disney Parks blog update right here. Carmen Smith says this: I think we've all had an opportunity in our lives to think about something that we've always wanted to do. I've followed the Tiana story, working for the Walt Disney Company for over 40 years, and just seeing that come to life, I realized that there was a great story there. Again, probably 2018, we began to shape and mold that there is a story here for us to tell. I'm one of those Imagineers that if you tell me no, I look at it as a road to yes. So it was a bit of a journey, but again, I look at no's as opportunities to continue to iterate and refine the story that you want to tell. You don't tell the story until you have a full team. I'll just say that. Yeah, I think she's being a little cagey with her words right here, and the fact that there's a bunch of no's in there, I think is also necessarily prominent here, because from what I understand, yes, were they looking into the possibilities of potentially replacing Splash Mountain with a different theme? Absolutely. But this actually goes back, 2018, I think is fair to say, but from my understanding, it even goes back further. And it was just kind of, honestly, it was from what I understand, like a two-person team, and they were just necessarily assigned to just kind of look at possible ideas that could be used.
So a generalized concept of, can we explore this idea? Not necessarily, we have plans and we are starting in 2018. We're definitely doing a Tiana ride. Tiana has always been a big focus at the parks ever since Princess and the Frog. I think that helps from Disney's standpoint. I think they view the diversity thing as a very important thing. They want to have diverse princesses in the park. The issue, of course, becomes that maybe Tiana's Bayou Adventure is not perceived as a Princess and the Frog ride as much as it is perceived as some kind of unusual extension of the brand, that it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the original movie.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that assessment that Tiana has necessarily been associated with the parks for quite some time now. I mean, ever since the movie came out, there was that great show in the Mark Twain that they had at Disneyland when that movie dropped. That was very well received, actually. A lot of people wanted it to come back, but it was only for that season in which the movie actually came out right there. So there have been necessarily conversations about, hey, how can we incorporate her more into the parks? I don't think it was necessarily associated with Splash Mountain until it, I mean, obviously 2020, right? But I think that's kind of where the genesis of this really is. The whole reframing of this, we'll get into that in a moment, but the time period she's talking about right there, and I think that's why she's expressing that, these things don't happen until you have a full team, right? I think she's saying that because, from what I understand, it was like a two-person team, and they were just necessarily analyzing, like I said before, the feasibility of doing feasibility studies on what a re-themed Splash Mountain could actually look like. And from what I understand, it ran the gamut. It wasn't just Tiana, it was also Zootopia, from what I gather. Now, the Zootopia idea quickly fell off the table, however, because from what I'm hearing, it was something where the a positive association to pop culture wasn't necessarily in the Disney company wheelhouse at that point, so they quickly moved away from that. And people have had reactions even to the Zootopia inclusion in Shanghai for those reasons, which is really, really funny. Not necessarily the people visiting those parks, but Westerners with a different mindset associated with them. So why do we reframe this? What is the purpose of associating this with this time period that doesn't necessarily make sense? I think it's because of that June 25th, 2020 date. I think I think it's an attempt to change the history on this to make it something that's not so reactive to what actually happened during that summer of love of 2020, right?
Right. So
go ahead.
Just to bring those who are not as knowledgeable about theme parks into this,
Sure.
This was announced in June of 2020, where tensions were very high at the time, and
Yes.
so there was a lot of sensitivity statements being made, and it was the same time that Bob Chapek went ahead and made the announcement they were going to be going ahead and retheming this ride to Tiana's Bayou Adventure. It was implied heavily in the media, probably with Disney's involvement, that this ride had a problematic past and therefore was not acceptable by today's standards. So they were trying to get rid of that. So it came off to many fans as an insult to the original ride, not just an insult to the original ride, which was the most popular attraction by some metrics at any theme park. Obviously that is not a scientific statement. That is an opinion and a general survey statement. So, okay, possibly there is some other metric you could use to say that this is a popular or not popular attraction. It was always busy. And when it shut down, there were massive lines when they found out when the last day that Splash would be in operation. When that was announced on social media, it was an outpouring of support for Splash Mountain, to the point where the Walt Disney Company decided not to announce the closing date of the Disneyland version of Splash Mountain in order to avoid that kind of a catastrophe. But of course, we did see photos with Tony Baxter and his crew going to watch their creation on its last day there at Splash Mountain being shut down. So I think this started in a way that maybe they thought they would have more popular support for getting rid of this ride. Maybe they misread the room, but it's been a lingering thing that imagine them saying that Journey into Imagination was somehow a problem and that somehow you were a bad person for supporting Figment and Dreamfinder, and then they were going to replace it. Imagine the sentiment that would be centered around that ride. Well, we don't really have to imagine that, but I just this is something where it was an amazing misstep on the part of the company, and indicates a point at which the culture war was visited upon the parks by the company themselves.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be.
Come on, Chapek. You gotta. I mean, we got to get better at this. No, I think your assessment there was correct, and also too, when this thing was announced that it was going away, the merch sales. I mean, everything sold out within like a matter of minutes. It was wild. I think people really took to this attraction. This is the first time really where an attraction this popular with this much legacy attached to it. Again, when this thing opened in 1989 at Disneyland on July 17th, this was the biggest attraction ever to be added to that park. People have fond memories of this. They had positive associations with this. So when you were saying that we were necessarily going to get rid of this ride in the climate in which this was announced, this is why Bob Rabosa says reckoning on race in her recent retirement statement from the company. That's what was going on there. These were the reasons why these things were done. And so this reframing of, well, we've been working on this since 2018 is an attempt to rewrite the history and to lend more credibility to this attraction. And so, no, we didn't react. This is something we've had in mind for years. And it's like, no, it was absolutely a reaction. That's why they after they announced this, they go dark on this news until what? Late 2022, early 2023, when they actually shut these things down. Right.
And it's one of those things where, like many statements by the Walt Disney Company, it's technically true, but they're trying to leave a different impression. It would appear that they're trying to leave a different impression with the audience than what the actual truth of the matter is. The Country Bear Jamboree refit is an excellent example. The Imagineer, one of the Imagineers that's no longer with the company. That's how long it's been since that was first talked about to when it's actually being built.
Right.
The Imagineer who worked on that said it was pitched many, many, many years ago, and now they are finally starting on it. That's kind of how projects work at the Walt Disney Company. There'll be several pitches. This is also not counting the fact that at some point they were talking about replacing that with Toy Story puppets on strings in the Country Bear spot. So, Vash, wrap us up here. Is there anything else to be added to this conversation?
I think so. I've heard internally that the the process by which a Disney Parks blog announcement or update is made wasn't necessarily followed here. This was extenuating circumstances with the culture and the climate of the time period, right? And I do agree with your assessment. I think they misread the room, and they didn't necessarily anticipate the amount of backlash that they are getting and continuing to get. We've also covered on That Park Place, not only on the YouTube channel but on the website, talking about how the Disney company would be stepping up their efforts in order to quell dissent on this specific attraction right here. So I think this is also part of that too. We're seeing the convergence of a lot of things right here with this story. That's why I wanted to go ahead and share it with our audience today, because, well, it's interesting how times change.
I would agree as well. And this is the kind of thing that Disney has tried, this kind of narrative shifting here after they have made one of these cultural properties about one of these hot button issues, these third rail issues. Generally speaking, that does not work well for the company. They slice their audience in half, and you can say that The Last Jedi was divisive because of some decisions by Rian Johnson, but that's also the point at which they started to attack fans and call them unkind names because they didn't like this character or that character. And they said, no, it must be this base level horrible thing that we reserve for the worst parts of society. This is not something that they have been able to save a property because of this kind of narrative, but they keep going back to it over and over again. We keep hoping that Disney will get past this, and there are signs that maybe Walt Disney Imagineering is making some positive moves in who they're bringing back. But we really, this is my advice. If you're watching this video and you think we're horrible people for pointing this out, you need to think why this is the thing that you keep going back to, this pseudo-religious idea that there is a segment of the population that hates things or likes this kind of division. We don't like this kind of division. We would like to move past it. And I think that it will go away if you stop marketing your multi-billion-dollar properties based off of it. But that being said, we want to throw it to the audience. What do you think about this? Have you been better informed by what is going on with this statement that Tiana's Bayou adventure was started, that they started work on the concepts in 2018? Do you think that's true? Do you think that's false? Is there something that you would like to add to the conversation? We are all ears. Please leave it in the comments section down below. Of course, like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.